The story of the soil beneath our feet is often one of triumph. But at Auschwitz-Birkenau, the earth speaks of a profound and somber silence. To understand the history of this site is to look into the darkest depths of the human experience, tracing the evolution of a small Polish town into the epicenter of the most systematic mass murder in human history. Our journey begins in Auschwitz, a town in southern Poland with a history dating back to the 12th century. For hundreds of years, it was a crossroads of trade and culture. However, following the German invasion of Poland in 1939, the town was annexed into the Third Reich and renamed Auschwitz. The location was strategically chosen by the Nazi regime due to its position at a major railway junction, making it easily accessible from across occupied Europe. In May 1940, the first camp, Auschwitz I, was established in former Polish army barracks. Initially, it was not intended for the Jewish population, but rather as a concentration camp for Polish political prisoners. As you walk through the brick gates today, the infamous phrase "Arbeit macht frei," work sets you free, stands as a cruel testament to the deception used by the SS. In these early years, prisoners were subjected to back-breaking labor, starvation, and brutal medical experiments. The camp functioned as a site of terror designed to break the spirit of the Polish resistance. By 1941, the scope of the camp began to shift. Following the invasion of the Soviet Union, thousands of Soviet prisoners of war were brought to Auschwitz. It was here, in the basement of Block 11, known as the Death Block, that the Nazis first experimented with the pesticide Zyklon B as a lethal gas. This horrific discovery marked a turning point, transforming Auschwitz from a place of detention into a factory of death. To accommodate the final solution, the Nazis began construction on a second, much larger site 2 miles away, Auschwitz II, Birkenau. If Auschwitz I was a prison, Birkenau was an industry. Constructed on the site of the evacuated village of Brzezinka, this vast expanse became the primary site of the Holocaust. The iconic gatehouse, through which the railway tracks lead directly into the camp, remains one of the most haunting images of the 20th century. Upon arrival at the ramp, the selection process began. Families were torn apart in seconds. With a simple flick of a finger, SS doctors decided who was fit for slave labor and who would be sent immediately to the gas chambers. The elderly, children, and mothers were almost always sent to the latter. Those selected for work were stripped of their clothes, their hair, and their names, replaced by a number tattooed onto their forearms, a practice unique to Auschwitz. The conditions within the wooden stables of Birkenau were beyond comprehension. Hundreds of prisoners were packed into bunks designed for a fraction of that number. Disease, particularly typhus, ran rampant, while the meager rations ensured a slow death by starvation. Yet, even in this abyss, there were acts of incredible bravery and resistance. Beyond the main camps, the complex expanded into Auschwitz III Monowitz and dozens of subcamps. This was the intersection of genocide and corporate profit, where prisoners were leased as slave labor to German industrial giants. The death through work policy ensured that those who survived the initial selection were often worked to the point of total physical collapse. As the Soviet Red Army advanced in late 1944, the Nazis attempted to hide their crimes. They blew up the gas chambers and crematoria, burned documents, and forced nearly 60,000 prisoners onto death marches toward the interior of Germany. Thousands died of exhaustion and cold in the bitter winter. When the liberators finally entered the camp on the 27th of January 1945, they found only a few thousand survivors, ghost-like figures surrounded by mountains of unspooled hair, shoes, and suitcases. Today, Auschwitz-Birkenau stands as a state museum and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is not just a cemetery, but a warning. The preservation of the ruins, the barracks, and the personal effects of the victims serves as a silent witness to what happens when hatred goes unchecked. Visiting this site is an act of remembrance, ensuring that the voices of the 1.1 million people murdered here are never forgotten. We look back at this history not to dwell in the past, but to protect the future.